Hey everybody, this is Ozzy Hockey, and this is going to be my tutorial for brand new Brood War players. I've had a lot of people coming ask me during my streams and stuff and on my videos if they should even like start learning Brood War. A lot of times you'll hear people kind of make like the joke like, you know, don't bother, it's been out for too long, everybody's too good, it takes, you know, too long to get good at the game, etc, etc. But I thought maybe it'd be good to make an actual video about this for players instead of like discouraging them, and actually kind of explain like why we say that, and to let them know it's more of a joke. It's not necessarily that you shouldn't even try. The thing is, like, we've been around doing this for pretty much since the game came out, a lot of us, and it took us a very, very long time to get good. But the thing is, back when we were younger playing, we weren't trying to get good, we were playing for fun, and we also didn't have the resources to actually improve at the game rapidly like a lot of people can nowadays. So I kind of wanted to backpedal on some of those jokes and stuff and actually put out a proper video, just kind of explaining things and maybe helping new players get into the game instead of discouraging everybody because we like to joke around. So this video is going to be covering basically like everything that like a brand new player that wants to get into the game needs to know. Just kind of help you guys like know where to start, what to work on, and that kind of thing, because there's really not much. Like, if you have nobody helping you and nobody talking to you, you just turn the game on and get on. You don't know where to start. You might hop on and play a few games, get absolutely smashed if you go straight online, get discouraged, and just never turn it on again. I imagine this happens relatively often, actually. I'm going to give you guys a starting point and kind of like things to work on, things to aim for, and like kind of the general process of like where to go from the beginning to get to where you need to be, where you can be playing online with other people and not be embarrassing yourself, or at least have fun and enjoy the game. And if you want to continue improving, I'll go over things like that as well if you actually want to get into ranked and become like a competitive player. StarCraft is a very difficult game, but it's also very, very rewarding seeing the results of like your hard work and improving and stuff. So most of us that play do play competitive. There obviously are a lot of people that still play for fun, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So if you just want to simply sit down and play the game with friends and stuff, enjoy your time, play pubs, maybe meet some people, and give it a shot. The StarCraft community in general is better than most gaming communities nowadays. I mean, it's not as toxic as like League of Legends and all these other games, but it is still an online game, so you are going to get some toxicity. It's just part of it. All that being said, let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is basically what is Brood War. As most of you know, coming into this, it is an RTS, which is real-time strategy. It's very similar to like Age of Empires, Command and Conquer, Warcraft, like these games, right? Where it's just you have workers, you're gathering resources, you're building an army, you're killing your opponents. That's just like the general concept. So StarCraft is a bit unique in how difficult it is to play. Things like unit control, strategies and stuff go like really in depth. And one of the biggest things about Brood War is like how difficult the game is to execute. And a lot of us that have been playing since the very beginning, like, you learn to love this part of the game, where it's very, very hard to play, but because it's so hard to play, it also means that there's basically no cap on the, like, skill ceiling. If you look at the best of the best in the world, they are still not playing optimally, right? They're still learning things, they're still trying to get better. You can never be too fast, like that kind of thing. And that's actually one of the things that I love about this game is, essentially, you can improve indefinitely. Obviously, the game can be very frustrating because it is very difficult. You can make a handful of mistakes very, very easily. In fact, you will constantly make mistakes, and you will get punished for those mistakes. So there is a lot of frustration that comes with it, but it's also very satisfying when you're, you know, learning things and improving, and you can see your improvement. But like most RTSs, not necessarily all of them, there's going to be 3 races. There'll be Zerg, Terran, and Protoss. We will go over all 3 races throughout this video, and maybe I can help you kind of decide what race you might be leaning towards. But we'll get into that a little bit later on, and we'll kind of discuss which race you want to play as and what each race does. There are like a lot of like little nuanced things throughout the game as well, like unit pathing, how to control your units, how to micro, macro, which I'll even discuss what those terms mean a little bit later. And like maybe if this goes well, then I can do like an intermediate video and then like further, right? Depending on what you guys want and like what the general feedback of this is going to be. Yeah, I feel like the important thing as you watch this video and as you play the game is Just try not to get frustrated. It is a difficult game. Like, I cannot stress this enough how difficult the game really is, and you will learn, like, as you play how hard the game is. But there are going to be, like, you know, difficulty spikes and stuff, of course. You know, we're going to go through, like, different options for when you're playing the game and like what the next steps are going to be, so you're not just jumping straight into something that you shouldn't be playing before you're ready, and so you don't get discouraged that way. It is generally a very fast-paced game. Obviously, the higher level you get, the more fast-paced it's going to be, and it all depends on what you end up deciding that you want to do. If you just want to play casual, you don't have to go like crazy with like the speed and stuff, or getting into games where you have to be really fast. You can just kind of play and relax. You know, get some friends, that kind of thing, play against like AIs together and stuff. You don't have to be competitive, as I kind of mentioned before. So there's definitely options, and there's even things like most RTSs have called use map settings, where you don't have to play like the actual game. You can play like modified maps and stuff that, you know, like RPGs or just like random stuff that's kind of for fun, tower defense, that kind of thing. So most RTSs have stuff like that, and there is plenty of that in Brood War as well. But this tutorial is going to be mostly for like learning the actual game itself, and if you decide you want to do that kind of stuff later, then, you know, by all means go ahead. As far as how long it'll take to get good at the game, this does of course depend on like the individual. If you have a knack for games in general, or RTS or something, then obviously you're going to improve faster, and it also depends like how much work and time you're willing to put into it. How willing you are to use the resources available, that kind of thing. If you're just going to get on and like play just to play, obviously it can take a while, but there's always going to be people around you can ask for help or like watch videos and stuff like that to improve. Obviously, if you have experience with RTSs before, this is going to be, you know, a big boost to you as well, and should cut down on the time. But yeah, it just all depends on each individual, and like I said, if you're not getting good fast enough, like, don't let that discourage you. Just keep playing. If you're enjoying the game, then just keep playing, and eventually you'll get it naturally. Alright, so the big question, where should you start with learning StarCraft? So right now we're just on like the beginning opening screen. When you open StarCraft, this is what you see. This is if you have remastered. If you didn't buy the remastered version, you're going to have the old version. It's going to look like this. This does not change the gameplay whatsoever. You can still play with people on remaster. Your game's just going to look, you know, older. So there's no like downside to having the older version. It just doesn't look as pretty. But the first thing I recommend, and this is something that I feel like a lot of people skip, but I strongly recommend that you do not skip this, is just playing through the campaign. It's just a really great way to like learn the basics of the game, and honestly the campaign story is not bad. If you're coming from StarCraft 2 and you've done the story, like, you already know it's pretty good. This is like the prequel to that, obviously. And yeah, the story is good, so if you just want to, like, you know, keep up with a decent story while learning the basic game, this is like really good. So you'll just click here on single player, and you want to start with original, not the expansion. You'll make your ID, just click new ID down here, and then you'll double click it or click OK. Alright, so once you've loaded in, you'll come to this screen here, and you'll have the 3 races here, Terran, Zerg, and Protoss. I strongly recommend that you go through the campaign for all 3 races on both the original and on the expansion. Like I said, the story is good, so it's not like you're going to be bored, and it's just a really good starting point to learn like the very basics of the game. The first mission, when you click on Terran, will literally load you into like a boot camp tutorial, which it explains like how to, you know, how to mine, how to do your resources, that kind of thing. I'm going to cover some of that stuff in the video anyway, but you still want to go through that and just play through all the missions, right? For all 3 races on both the versions. Once you've gone through the campaign with all races on both, I would recommend playing some like games against AI and kind of feeling out the game itself. So when you want to play against AI, you would go to play custom, and you're gonna come up with a screen. Yours is gonna look a bit different than mine, because I got a bunch of different like map packs and stuff that you're not gonna have. It's not like super important. But this is basically where you'll like choose your map. Like, it has the number here, which is the number of players. So if you go to like 4, for instance, you'll have your name and then like 3 computers, right? And then the game types will be right here. Melee means that every single AI is going to be against you, so it'll be you against however many opponents that you have. So as you're getting better at the game, you can maybe add some more. If you go to 7, you're going to die every single time, even I, okay? And not do it on certain maps. So you don't want to go like too crazy with that. But if you do free-for-all, then, you know, you can add like, go to an 8-player map, add all your different AIs. You can pick like your race here, pick their races here. Obviously you got the 3 races and then random. And then like when you load into a game, the computers will also attack each other and kill each other. So I recommend holding off on doing this until after you've gone through at least a fair amount of the campaign, and then you can do some of these games and kind of get like a feel for like the actual game. I would say after you've done a few of those and you're feeling like pretty decent about it, then you can go into actual online games. And don't worry, I will also include in this video, like I will create some games and kind of show you some of the gameplay as well. I just wanted to show you basically like the general like direction that I feel like you should go for like improving at the game and just kind of learning the game in general. But once you're ready to get online, you can back out all of this, go back to your main menu, and then you would go to multiplayer. You'll want to play the expansion. Nobody really plays the original anymore. So you always want to click the expansion. If you get this pop up, just cancel, ignore this. And then you'll choose your gateway, so just like whatever region you're in. If you're in NA, then you're gonna want to play on West server. East server doesn't really have any games anymore. And then obviously if you're Europe, Korean, Asia, whatever, you can play on these and kind of go through different stuff. But if you're NA, you want to play on West. If you're European, obviously you want to play on Europe. When you're ready to like load in, you can do change profile. I'm not sure exactly what it looks like anymore when you have a new account. It might just be like create profile. If you click online, it'll take you online right away. If you click change profile, it'll like bring you up here to your different profiles, and you can even see like they're made in different regions. You would like load into whatever. For me, it's going to be on West. And then this is going to be your like online menu here. You'll load into a channel, which is basically like, you know, a public channel with a bunch of different players and stuff. I'm in my own private channel, so there's nobody else in here. You got like your friends list and stuff here. But when you want to play games, you can click join, and you'll get a list of like the different lobbies that are joinable. If you want to look for something specific, like for me, I play a lot of Big Game Hunters, which is what BGH stands for. So if you like search and I just type in BGH, then it'll bring up like all the BGH lobbies, like based on the name. You can also do like the filter and like choose the game type. If you remember earlier, I mentioned like use map settings, which is going to be the kind of like for fun stuff. Remove your filter, and this is going to be just like the random, like GTD stands for God Tower Defense and like this kind of stuff, right? It's just your random like for fun game modes if you just want to do like super chill stuff. If you want to do ranked, then obviously there's the ranked button here. And when it comes to like ranked, you'll choose your race. These are going to be the maps for the ladder. You don't really want to worry about any of this stuff, by the way, for a while. I'm just kind of showing you like what everything looks like, but I strongly recommend that you do not go straight into ranked until you've got a decent idea of how to play. But as you like play games, you have like an MMR system, and it tries to match you to people close to your MMR. It does the best that it can. Sometimes it's way off, but we won't worry about that right now. And then the last thing is going to be create up here in the top left, which is just going to be creating your own lobbies. You know, create name, just whatever you want the name to be. You make it private, you can add a password so that only your friends can join. Here you'll choose the map. This will only be like your recent maps. If you wanted to look up a specific map or like something that's not on this list, you click the little folder here and it'll kind of bring up this menu of maps. Like I said, you're just going to look a lot different. I got stuff for like different leagues and everything that I've downloaded. And we'll discuss in a little bit too, like what maps you should maybe be trying to learn to play. And then game type, obviously 101, top versus bottom. Use map settings if it's like that kind of map. Typically nobody really runs melee anymore. Top versus bottom kind of does the same thing, but it's a little bit easier formatted where it separates the teams already, so like it already allies you against your teammates and or with your teammates and stuff, so you don't have to like worry about manually doing it like you do in melee. Speed is basically the speed of the game. This is always on fastest. If you ever do less, nobody's gonna play. If you try playing a normal, it is unbelievably slow. This is not a real way of playing the game. It's just always on fastest. Turn rate, something you're not really gonna recognize much of right now, but when you're online, turn rate is basically, it's like reaction speed, right? So the lower the turn rate, well, dynamic, I'll discuss dynamic in a second, but the lower the turn rate, the slower your units are gonna respond. Dynamic kind of like tries to adjust the turn rate based on how much the lobby is lagging, but it's really not reliable. It's better if you're hosting to kind of pick a turn rate you want. either between 12 or 16 is typically what you end up running. If you go over 16, then a lot of players are going to lag and it's not going to be playable. So 16 is about the most you'd want to do. If you're playing with people that the lobby just is lagging too much at 16, then you typically want to go down to 12. Custom hotkeys you always want to keep enabled. This is for when you manually change what your hotkeys are going to be. I don't know why disabled is even an option, because if you put that on, every player that joins your lobby has their manual hotkeys turned off, and they have to use the default ones. I don't know why this is an option. I don't know why this exists. It's literally just a troll. And then for unit limits, you want to keep this on extended. Original is what it used to be, which was essentially what happened was a map could only hold a certain number of like sprites on the screen or like in the game. And what would end up happening is people would make buildings that would create sprites, and it would max the map out so that nobody else could make anything until units started dying and stuff. So they did finally get rid of that. I guess this is for like a nostalgia thing or something, but extended basically removes that problem. So that's basically going to be going through like the process of kind of what you want to be doing. When you get online to play, if it's your first time in getting online, like you do kind of want to look for noob games if possible. If there's none being like hosted, then you can create your own. Now you see how to. When you create a lobby, I'll go ahead and show you how this works real quick. You would want to do it public, so you'd be like 3v3. For me, I play a lot of BGH, like noobs only, right? I'm not going to create this lobby right now because people would get confused about why I'm doing that. But I'll show you kind of like what it looks like when you hosted a lobby, so you kind of know what you're expecting. This is me going through the maps right here. Like I said, I'm a big game hunters player. And then you'll like load into this screen right here. This is like the waiting room. You can like sort players out. Like when they join and you click them, there will be an option to like move them around or something. You can close slots, open slots, change them to computers if you're playing with friends or something. I guess that this is top versus bottom, so like this is going to be your team. Or if you want to click this, it can shift you down here. There's observer slots even that you can open, move down there, and you can just watch people playing. But yeah, like if you want to host your own lobby, like you want to do like a 3v3 or something with new players, then you can just do 3v3 noobs. When people join, it'll actually like show their record. So you'll like kind of get a pop-up that looks like this, showing like their record. And you can kind of sort out your players that way of maybe people are joining that are too good. And then yeah, you can build your teams, and once you like have the teams, you would click. Yep, sorry, you have to choose your races. And then this is just for the colors as well. You can choose the color that you want to be. And then once you have like the players in the lobby, you click OK, and it starts like a countdown, and it'll start the game. And yeah, this is basically going to be kind of the pattern, not the pattern, this would be like the path that I personally recommend for learning the game and then kind of going through the game, get to like online mode and how you want to play online. Alright, now that we got all that stuff out of the way, it's finally time to actually like discuss playing the game, right? So I'm going to load into a couple games, I'm going to show you the different races and kind of talk about a little bit about how to play, like what you want to work on specifically. There's things to keep in mind like while you're trying to improve. Alright, so we're going to go to single player, go into the expansion, load your profile, going to create a custom game. Like I said, BGH is like a big map for me. I'll go over the different maps that are played. There's basically 3 different like styles or maps that we're going to talk about that's the most popular, and you can kind of decide like what is more interesting to you. First we're going to go over Terran. I'll kind of show you, since Terran's going to be the race that you're going to be playing first, I'll use this when I get us started, and then but I'll still go over the other 2 races, so don't worry about it. So we're going to load into the game. Alright, so the first thing when you're getting into the campaign, I think, I'm not 100% on this, but I'm pretty sure that the speed is actually turned down when you've first played the game. So you're going to want to go to options and then go to speed and make sure your game speed is turned all the way up. This other stuff you can play with if you want. key scroll speed, mouse sensitivity, that kind of stuff. It's gonna be like things like how fast your windows and stuff is moving, your screen is moving, rather, when you're like trying to move your window around. But I'll let you guys play with that and kind of figure out what you want. The rest of it, we're not gonna worry too much about right now. But yeah, just make sure your game speed is turned up, and the other stuff we'll figure out over time. Okay, this is gonna get covered a lot in the tutorial. But we're still going to go over and I'll show you like some like shortcuts and stuff that you're going to want to be practicing and getting used to from the very beginning. We're going to try and get you guys to start with good habits, okay? Something that I wish I had known back then, because I have really bad habits that even today I'm having a really hard time breaking, that are holding me back. So the first thing is, like, this is your main building. This is for producing workers for Terran. These are like additional add-ons that'll do other stuff, but we'll worry about that later. So one thing that you want to learn right away is to try and minimize the amount of like clicking you're doing for production. So for like your SCV, you can click it and it'll start building. If you want to cancel, you can click it here, right? You can click here. Or the best way is to push escape, so you're not clicking anything. And then when you're sending your workers to mine, you can drag to select all your workers at once. And there's a gather command, so everything that you do, there's a command for it, but a lot of them, there's ways to kind of get around it. So for an SCV, instead of clicking gather and then going to a mineral patch and then left clicking to make it go mine, you can just select your workers and then right click, and that'll make them all gather. Whenever you're building units, try and get in the habit of, when you hover over it, like you want to build an SCV and it has that little yellow S there, that is the shortcut for making the unit. So if you don't know what the shortcuts are, you want to hover over it, see what it is, and then push it on your keyboard, and this will get you in a good habit of doing it pretty regularly. With buildings, there's things called rally points, so you can click the rally, but again, instead of having to click to set the rally, you can actually just right click. And as you can see, like, the rally just means the unit's going to go there. When you click the building, it actually will show you where your rally point is if it's on the screen. But yeah, like, whenever you're making your workers, you want to kind of right-click the rally point towards your minerals, select your worker while it's walking, then right-click the mineral patch. These are just good habits that you're going to be really happy that you started from the very beginning. Like I said, a lot of the stuff I'm going to go over is covered in the tutorial, but I don't think me giving you extra information and like different stuff is going to be a bad thing necessarily. So here in the top right, you see like the supply. This is how many minerals you have. This is your gas, which is going to be like your tech and stuff like that. And then this is your population. So right now I have 6 SCVs out of 10. And as this gets full, I'll have to restart the mission here in a second, by the way, because I am wasting a lot of time. The computer does have like a map hack. They will come and attack you if you're too weak. So at some point, because I'm like talking to you guys, they are gonna show up. I'm gonna die because I haven't been building stuff. But you see my resources are getting high. My supply is getting close. I just want to show you like when you get max out, like kind of what happens. And then like as you see, you can also like queue up units, right? It goes up to 5, so you can queue up to 5 units at once. So if you're getting distracted doing other stuff, this will continue going. Alright, so this SCV is going to put us 10 out of 10 supply. And when it finishes, the game's going to complain and be like, hey, you don't have enough supplies. So we'll let that happen. And then bam. So this will stop producing now. You see like the little progress timer is done, and we're 10 out of 10. So what you can do is you need to build supply depots. Every race has like a different version. For Terran it's supply depots, for Protoss it's pylons, for Zerg it's overlords. So you'll end up doing a build structure. This is for advanced structures, but there's like prerequisites to everything that you don't have yet. It's going to be B, so make sure you're using the hotkey. Like I said, if you don't know what it is, just hover over it, you'll see it, push it, and you'll get in the habit of this over time. Most everything is going to be like the first word or the first letter of it. There are some like nuances where it's not quite like that. So for supply depot, it's going to be S. So a quick way of doing it would be you click your SCV, you hit B, then S, and that's your supply depot. And you kind of see like this is going to be where you're placing it. If it goes somewhere, like if you try hovering over something that it can't, it'll be red and you can't build there. And he'll even say, I can't build there. Yeah, so you'll click it, and then your worker starts building it. For Terran, their workers have to stay on a building and continue building it the entire time. Every race works a little bit different. But he'll continue working on this, and then when it finishes, you'll see my maximum supply will go up, and then he'll be free to use. And I think the computer should be showing up to kill me pretty soon. Okay, so now that's done. I'm not going to go like through everything. This is just kind of showing you guys a little bit of like how the game works and the general gameplay here. So you'll end up making a barracks, which is going to be like for your infantry, which is going to be B. So you would push B, then B. And yeah, just get in the habit of like using your hotkeys like that. You'll be so happy later on that you did. Even while a building is building, you can like right click to set a rally point, right? So you can already have that set ahead of time. And yeah, that's just kind of like the general stuff. Like this is going to be your gas for mining gas, which is refinery. So it's going to be R, so BR, right? You get the general idea now at this point. When the barracks are done, you can make marines, which are like fighting units. And like I said, I won't go like too far into it because you're going to go through all this through the campaign. But the main thing is I just wanted to go over each race to help you kind of decide which race you want to play. So they have very different play styles. Like Terran is much more like technical, right? The way you like use your armies and control and stuff. They're very strong when used correctly. But controlling Terran units can be a lot more difficult. Protoss is generally considered the beginner race, and then Terran and Zerg kind of the intermediate or harder races. Like I said, just you'll go through the campaign, you'll get a feel for each one, you'll play some games, kind of mix up the races, and just see which one you like the most, right? I won't go into like how to play necessarily each race in this video. This is just going to be, like I said, a tutorial video for like brand new players to get an idea of what you want to do. But let me quickly show you the other two races. And I'll show you Protoss and I'll explain like why this is like a good beginner race. But it's all basically the same. You know, select your workers, right click, hit the hotkey. It's actually P normally, but I changed it to E because E is like, you know, on the left side of the keyboard and P is on the other side. So you typically try to keep everything on the left side. So you can customize your hotkeys as well to kind of fit your like needs a little bit more. But yeah, this is like, it's all the same. The original, like the starting of the game is the same with every race. You're going to be making your workers. You're going to be tilling them to mine. You're going to be gathering your resources. Your supply is going to go up. But there's two things about Protoss that kind of make them more newbie friendly, right? So one of the first ones is going to be when they build buildings, their workers are free to move. So for Protoss, they have pylons instead of supply depots. So right now I'm like 8 out of 9 or 9 out of 9. So you're going to build your pylon, which is also smaller than a depot, which is nice. And then it just starts warping in, and then your worker's like good to go. You can do anything with it at this point. So that's like number one why Protoss is so newbie friendly. And this actually allows them to have better income in the beginning because SCVs, obviously they're not mining while they're building. Now, one nuance about Protoss is their other buildings, like for instance their gateway, which is their just like the barracks equivalent for Protoss, is when you build pylons, you see this like little blue kind of grid around it. I don't really want to call it a grid, but you know what I mean. They can only build certain buildings within that. So like their gateways to make their army can only be within that circle, right? So we would build a couple gateways within that. And the other thing that kind of makes them more newbie friendly is their units are just stronger, right? Protoss units in the beginning of the game don't need a lot of babysitting like Terran and Zerg units do. They're pretty strong and pretty good independently. So that's kind of the two major things about Protoss that make it more newbie friendly. But again, it just depends on your style. Like all three races play very differently. And let me show you Zerg, just kind of the beginning of Zerg here as well. And I'm sorry if I'm giving like a lot of like useless information or maybe giving too much information. I'm just thinking like from a teaching someone that's never played StarCraft or hardly any RTSs at all before. I just wanted to kind of showcase the game a little bit. Okay, Zerg is also a little bit different. So instead of having their building like producing like normal, they create these things called larvae here. And when you click the larva, you get the option of like what units to turn it into. And basically every single unit the Zerg makes come out of these larvae, which are pumped out of the thing called a hatchery here. So for Zerg, you got drones, which is their workers, and then overlords, which is going to be their supply, which is this guy right here. You start off with one. A hatchery gives 1 supply, an overlord gives 8, giving you 9. So you may have noticed with Terran they had 10. This is because the command center actually gives 10 supply, and the Nexus gives 9. And then the Zerg, their overlord, they start off with an overlord, like I said, it gives you 1, or 8, sorry, and the hatchery gives 1, giving you 9 total. And you kind of saw I just did there where I selected all the drones, or all the larvae at once and created drones out of all of them at once. Now here's the thing about Zerg when they're creating buildings. You select a drone, and it's called mutation, and then you select your building. So for instance, with Zerg, to make their army units, they need the larva, right? Instead of it coming out of a building, it comes out of the hatchery that makes the larva, and you collect the larva. Their first unit requires a spawning pool. You would like B, and then spawning pool is here in S. Now, one thing about Zerg is when you build a building with Zerg, it also has to be on creep, similar to how Protoss has that little blue aura. Terran, however, can build anywhere no matter what. Zerg has to have creep to build certain buildings, unless it's a hatchery, right? The hatchery, which is this guy here, can go anywhere. Unless it's too close to like mineral patches and like gas and stuff. You're not allowed to build them like up against it, right? It has to be a slight distance from it. But when Zerg builds their building, their drone turns into the building, so you actually lose the worker. So this does mean that Zerg typically has the weakest economy of the 3 races because you're using your drones to make buildings. Now the thing about Zerg is they make a lot of units kind of early, right? Or like they can come out in like swarms, basically. But they're a bit more technical, kind of like Terran, and need a good bit of control. But same with like the other buildings, like you can right-click with your hatchery to set the rally, and this will like make it where all units that come out of that hatchery, all the larvae, will go to that rally. I think that's all we'll talk about right now with the races. The other stuff, you'll get used to it all as you're playing, so you don't need me to show you like all of this. You'll probably have done some of this if you're like going in order through my video anyway. Yeah, that basically covers kind of the concept of all 3 races. You'll get a feel for them all as you go through the campaigns and stuff. And yeah, by the time you're done with the campaigns, you've done some games, I think you'll be able to decide which race seems the most interesting to you. Alright, so the last thing we're going to talk about here is what maps should you play. Basically, I'm going to go over 4 different things, like the 4 kind of more common ones that you're going to hear about. But hop into custom game here and kind of show you. So I showed you BGH earlier, and I'll explain it a little bit more in detail. First of all, to get to BGH, which again stands for Big Game Hunters, you're going to double click Brood War. So I'll show you how to get here. Well, you go play custom. It'll bring up like your different like maps and stuff down here, and you'll have your folders towards the top. But you're gonna go to Brood War, and then Web Maps, and then down to the 8-player maps, you'll see Big Game Hunters. This map is the one that I am most known for. It's gonna be kind of the least common of the ones I'm gonna talk about. It depends what servers you're playing on. On West and on Europe, these maps are relatively popular, BGHs. But you kind of see here like the little map preview. It's an 8-player map. A lot of people like to do 3 versus 3 is the most common. But it's a large map. It's usually pretty like chill, relaxing. This is what most of my content is. Nothing like super competitive or anything necessarily. Like there are some people that are pretty competitive, but for the most part, this is like a good for fun map. The other version of this, which is going to be less common unless you're playing on the Asian servers, is just called the Hunters, which is going to be back on the main map screen here down at the bottom. It's just the Hunters. So this is basically a lesser version of BGH. And one of the major differences between the Hunters and big game hunters is BGH has infinite resources at the bases, so you can never mine out your gas or your minerals. And BGH also comes with 2 gases in your main as opposed to 1, like Hunters. So that's kind of the bigger difference. BGH isn't that common over on the Asian servers, but if you're like in Korea or something like that, Hunters is much more popular, and is also pretty competitive over there, I'm pretty sure. But if you're playing on like the NA server or the European server, you're not going to see much Hunters. It's going to be mostly BGH or another map. And the other one that is very popular is called Fastest, which you're going to have to get online and kind of join a lobby to download it. There's a few different versions of it, but I'll show you what Fastest looks like real quick to show you like why this one is pretty popular. And this is probably the most popular one. There's 2 different versions of it. Like there's this version here where I personally don't like this one as much. The gases are all like kind of screwed up and it messes with the mining. But then you got this one where you got like these big bases here. This one I personally think is more fun. It's a little bit more popular, I think anyway. I don't play these maps a whole lot. But the thing that makes these maps so popular is like the resource gathering. So it looks like there's one patch here, but it's actually like infinite, maybe? I don't actually know how many are stacked, but there's a bunch stacked. So whenever you're like gathering from this, there's no travel time, right? And you can't normally build your command center, your nexus, whatever, like right up next to the resources like this. It has to be like a little bit further away. So if you ever lose this base on this map, you cannot rebuild it and get that like super bonus here of the mining. But it basically it's just super fast income. You see it's like tons of geysers, right? You can build like extra nexus and stuff and get tons of gas. So this is more of just make 1 million units, get 1 billion resources, and yeah, kind of have fun that way. So that one's like the most common, and obviously it is kind of the least competitive. There is a competitive scene for basically all of the maps, but for the most part, if you're just like casually looking around online, you're not gonna run into that kind of stuff. And then the last one would be ladder map. So ladder is basically, this is all 1v1 stuff. I wouldn't worry too much about these maps yet. Most of this you're basically going to learn real time when you're queuing up for ladder. When you match with an opponent on ladder, it's going to choose one of the random ladder maps of that season. And that's like the really competitive like 1v1, like try to get better, try to improve maps. So at least for the very beginning, I wouldn't worry too much about this. Like I said, once you start doing ladder, you're going to be playing on these maps a fair amount. And yeah, there's like other maps that aren't necessarily in the ladder pool that you'll see like people doing custom games of for 1v1s. So if you're big on like 1v1 and that kind of thing and being competitive, then these are the maps that you'll kind of want to practice on, at least after you've got the kind of basics learned. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for this video. I feel like this is pretty good for covering like just a starting point, right? Just getting an idea of like where to start, what to do, and get a feel for the game in general. I just wanted to give a bit of a sense of direction for brand new players getting on. And like I said, if I get like pretty good feedback on this, I will happily do a higher level video, like an intermediate video, and go a little more into depth about some things, like for people that have like gone through this video, gone through the steps of this video, of like going through the campaign, playing some games against AI, playing some games online. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it actually helps. I would love to get some brand new players on StarCraft. I think that'd be awesome. If you guys have any questions at all, things that I didn't cover, things that you might want to know, or maybe as you're playing you come up with some questions, please come back and leave comments. I would love to have the extra ideas and suggestions and stuff for my next video. And if you really enjoyed this video and it does help you a lot, feel free to subscribe. That stuff does help the channel a ton. And yeah, I hope to see you guys online. I hope to see you guys on StarCraft. And yeah, thanks for watching.